in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Nick Zulovich of Cherokee Media Group. In today's webinar, how to manage the risks associated with wholesale vehicle sourcing, we're going to learn more about this topic and some strategies from Stu Dressler and Matt Barnard from DealShield. But before we get started, I want to go over a few housekeeping items for today's webinar. Please make sure you've dialed in using the phone number provided in your communication email, or you're able to listen via your PC speakers. We are recording today's webinar and will make the recording available to you in the coming days so you can share it with others or review the great material that Stu and Matt are about to share. You will be in listen-only mode for this webinar, but we will reserve some time after the presentation for a question and answer session. You can submit your questions at any time through the questions box on the GoToWebinar control panel. And if we aren't able to get to your question today, don't worry, because we'll forward it on to Stu, Matt, and the team at DealShield so they can respond back to you directly via email. Lastly, if you have any difficulty during the webinar, please click on the hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel, and a member of our team will try to address your issue as quickly as possible. So let's get into the meat of today's webinar. For many dealers, smarter wholesale vehicle sourcing has become a critical competitive advantage. While software and access to real-time data certainly help, what do you do when you want to expand your footprint or when you discover problems with a particular purchase that happens 18 days later? Our experts will reveal how dealers are using risk management tools to move inventory more quickly, protect gross profit, eliminate costly mistakes, and explore new markets. So let's learn more about those topics and more in our webinar titled How to Manage the Risks Associated with Wholesale Vehicle Sourcing with Stu Dressler and Matt Barnard. Gentlemen, the webinar floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, Nick. We appreciate your time, and we also appreciate the time of everyone who's on the webinar today. Going to maximize the screen here, and hopefully you can see that, and maybe we'll get out of there. That's not what I want to do. All right, so hopefully you can see the screen clearly. We're going to do a quick agenda here and show you what we're going to talk about today. First, we're going to give you a very brief introduction about DealShield, the company, because it's a fairly new entity and probably a lot of people are wondering what DealShield is. We're also going to give you a general overview of the risks in vehicle sourcing. Then we're going to break it down by what we call the vehicle sourcing risk landscape, and we're going to look at the distinct phases of that landscape. From there, we're going to look at solutions and options by each of those phases, as well as the pros and cons of those products and services that help mitigate the risk during vehicle sourcing. And then toward the end, we're going to just touch on cost-benefit analysis of using these products and how they can help with inventory risk management. Okay, so DealShield is actually a company focused on exactly this, really helping dealers mitigate wholesale inventory risk. And we're actually a member of the Cox Automotive Group. We started in 2012 in the second quarter, and it went to market in the third and fourth quarter with a couple pilots. During 2013, we were rolling our product out to a few additional locations. We wanted to be very careful as we were perfecting our algorithms and really testing the market acceptance of the product, because as you can imagine, when you're putting guarantees on vehicles and really helping dealers manage risk that way, you want to make sure you're doing it right so you can stand behind it. felt very comfortable at the end of 2013 that we had our arms around it pretty well and have spent a good chunk of this year rolling it out nationally. So we're now at 62 Mannheim locations nationwide. We're also at BSC's Bel Air Auto Auction, and beginning in January, we'll be at BSC's Tallahassee Auto Auction in Florida. In terms of our volume, we're really selling multiple thousands of guarantees a week at this point, approaching the 10,000 guarantee number, and our growth rate has been phenomenal. The market acceptance has been fantastic, and we hope to continue that growth rate for years to come. To date, we've protected well over $1 billion in vehicle value. So that's just an overview and a quick background. This is Stu Dressler talking, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Matt Barnard, who has been with us for about a year now, and Matt has been out to almost every one of those 62 locations talking to hundreds of dealers, and knows the insides and outsides of inventory risk management and vehicle sourcing risk.
Well, thanks, Stu, and I appreciate it, and thanks, Nick, for the introduction. Risk. Risk is a prevalent thing in every industry, whether you are a company that provides a product or a service, and wherever you may be with raw materials or delivering that product, there's always going to be risk involved. And this especially rings true for the used vehicle sourcing. Vehicles don't have mouths. They can't tell you where they've been. They can't tell you what's wrong with them. And unfortunately, it's up to the dealer to try to find some of the information to dig those things out. So we're going to look at a multifaceted risk. Now, the way we gauge risk is not based on the vehicle, although that is a part of it. We look at a lot more factors, sometimes up to 60 factors depending on the individual transaction. And that's what we try to gauge it by, the individual transaction and all the factors involved in that individual transaction. This includes the vehicles themselves, the people buying and selling, their reputations in the industry, the title and chain of ownership, processes involved with the transaction, along with the policies involved with that transaction. Any past information such as auction notices, announcements, auto check histories, that kind of thing. Transactions themselves. Was the transaction either bought, was it overpaid for on MMR, was it underpaid for on MMR, was there a reason for that overpay or underpay, and any past transactions as well as far as people's history. Market forces, is the vehicle a convertible sold up north during the winter, or is it a convertible sold down south during the winter? What's going to change that market force? Are we leaning towards fuel efficiency in this market, or are we leaning, gas prices went down, maybe we're going back to 4x4s? And a whole bunch of other factors. These are some of the initial ones that we look off right off the bat. So managing risk is critical, and it's critical because you want to avoid, at all means, losing gross profit margin. Now, with reconditioning costs, a lot of times they can be underestimated, and immediately that goes right into the gross profit that a dealer can make on that vehicle. And it reduces the working capital available, so people find themselves being locked or have assets frozen as raw materials, such as vehicles, hunks of metal that they have to move to get that capital fluid again. And there's time and money wasted on disposing of problem vehicles. Without clear-cut channels to get rid of a problem vehicle, a lot of times there's a big loss taken on all the time spent and all the hours and people you have to pay to deal with that problem for you. Or you have to rerun the vehicle through the lanes at an auction again and take another hit. So it ends up being a bigger problem than just having or paying the vehicle itself. And then unhappy buyers. And so maybe you sell a vehicle that had problems, right, and then you thought you fixed them. Well, the problems arise after you sell the vehicle. Or you had a specific buyer in mind, and the vehicle didn't quite measure up. Well, you don't want to ruin that PR with that customer because you want repeat business just like any other business out there, and that can be a prevalent problem. And there's much more. So without that, let's go. This is kind of how we gauge risk. It's a 65-day timeline. We call it our vehicle sourcing risk landscape. And if you look to the left, we have from the research phase through the delivery and assessment and reconditioning phase all the way through retailing. So it starts before you even get the vehicle and the information that you have available to you to when you actually get the vehicle and have some numbers in front of you of how much it's going to cost to fix that vehicle, and then the time and money that's spent while it sits on your lot before it's actually sold to its end consumer. So, and if you look to the right here, okay, this is kind of our risk gauge. So each one of these little sections right now, research, delivery and assessment, and retailing, are all going to have a different amount of risk involved with them. So this is kind of what we believe is the higher the lower risk of that's associated with each of these phases. Hold on one second. There we go. So the research phase, that's the first phase you have in the whole vehicle sourcing landscape. And it starts off before you even purchase the car. You have to find out what vehicle you want, what's in your market, find out where that vehicle is being sold or auction house. Now, some of the risk involved with this, you notice on the right side what we gauge is it goes from a low risk to a medium risk because you're not locked into the vehicle. You're just researching at this point. But the risks involved with this are a lot of the times inaccurate information. So whether you use a CR, condition report, to gauge whether a vehicle is a good vehicle to purchase, or you use an auto check history or Carfax, those are good sources to use as far as gauging where the vehicle's been geographically, has it been up to date in service, but they can't tell you exactly what the condition of the vehicle is in current state. I'll give you an example. Personal vehicle of mine I was researching, I did an auto check history on it. It showed up clean, no accidents. And then a friend of mine, just for kicks, did a Carfax history on it as well, and it showed up it did have an accident. Now, although there was a lot of overlapping information, one source did record the accident and one did not, so they're not always complete. And unknown condition issues. Now, the condition issue, you're not, like you said, or like I said earlier, you're not locked in to the vehicle, but the condition issue is still prevalent, and if you don't know about it, you could end up pulling the trigger and purchasing a vehicle that has an issue you find out later on. Lack of access to the vehicle. Now, when the vehicle is on your lot or in your shop, you can pretty much do with it and play around with it at your will to kind of decipher what it needs, how long it's going to take to recondition it before you can put it on your lot. But when it's on an auction lot, you're pretty much at the will of the auction house and the rules and their specifications as far as what you can do to check that vehicle out before it actually goes up for auction. And then lack of time to complete due diligence. So that vehicle, from the time it's listed to the time it goes to auction, it's going to happen, whether you're ready to purchase it, whether you feel comfortable with the information that you gathered from it. So the timeline is really just diminishing before that vehicle sells, whether you're ready for it or not. And then market differences. Again, how we talked about how a convertible may sell for a lot more down south during the winter than it would up north. So you need to know what market you're in and who you're bidding against, transportation, that kind of issues as well. All right, so mitigation in the research phase. So how are we going to mitigate the risk? Options may be available. Vehicle history reports, like I mentioned before, Carfax history reports, auto check history reports. All these are very good as far as telling the maintenance of a vehicle, where the vehicle's been geographically. So if it's a northeast vehicle, you have to worry about rust, or is it a southern vehicle that hasn't seen snow ever? All these are important little factors to know to kind of gauge if there's going to be any preceding problems with the vehicle. Now, vehicle value data, the black book value of the vehicle, the blue book, Kelly Blue Book value of the vehicle. You want to know where you stand in the market with that vehicle. And consolidated solutions like Auction Genius and AutoNeat, these are different programs that people can use to kind of compile and organize this massive amount of data and auction information so they can have it readily available to research each of these individual cars before they feel comfortable pulling the trigger and purchasing these vehicles. Condition reports, like I mentioned before, it's kind of a cosmetic look around of the vehicle. It's going to let you know what condition it is by eye point. Sometimes I believe that you can, for an additional price, they're provided by sellers that they can actually do a slight mechanical inspection, but it's very sparingly that they do that. It's very much just a cosmetic kind of look around the vehicle. And then on-site touch and feel. This is what keeps a lot of people in the auction place from using different online mediums such as simulcast and OBE. They want to go test drive the vehicle if possible. They want to read the codes with their devices to see if there's anything that comes up that they might have to worry about. They want to see it with their own eyes, hear it with their own ears. That's confidence they build just by having that vehicle in front of them, and they're not subjected to the whims of pictures from like a CR report. So the pros of these, you get a decent feel for the state of the vehicle. By touching it, feeling it, you have a stronger confidence, and if that vehicle is being described accurately, condition reports is great as far as giving you an accurate idea of what it looks like. An accident and maintenance information is always good because it can kind of gauge if you're going to have future problems with the vehicle. The cons of these, though, are inaccuracies in information. So again, I go back to my scenario with the Carfax and the AutoCheck, that these are going to provide you as much information they can, and they're great sources to have, but they're not watertight. Some may have more information than others. A lot of it's going to be overlapping. And in the snapshot views, if you're buying online especially, this is a particular con because you don't get that touch and feel. You get a subjective view of what that vehicle looks like from whatever angles the seller decided to take, or the CR report dictates the picture from. So you really can't do the actual walk around yourself. And they may not go deep enough into the view of the vehicle. So CR reports, like I said, pretty much tell you what the vehicle looks like from the outside. And mechanical issues seem to be something that is more prevalent and costs more money long term. And vehicle history reports tell you what the car has been through, but it also doesn't tell you if there's any current issues with the vehicle that have not been met in a while. And then, unfortunately, we are in the industry sometimes where codes are cleared by other people to try to push a vehicle that may have a problem onto another person that may be unsuspecting. And then, next thing they know, no one wants to have a vehicle that they're driving down, and 20 miles later they have a code that pops up, and all of a sudden they're surprised at this clean vehicle that they bought. So the purchase or day of sale, now you see the risk jump from low to medium to low to high. That's because you are making the decision. You are investing your capital in this vehicle. So these problems that could have been before are now going to be yours if they existed previously. So undiscovered condition issues, another one. Now at this point, they're your issues if you purchase this vehicle. Now you have, as a dealer, maybe 2 to 10 minutes to look over a vehicle before you decide whether or not it comes up to the block, whether you want to purchase that vehicle or not. With all the working parts in a car and how little they have to travel from their spot to the actual auction block, it's hard to decipher whether there is an issue just from that short amount of time. Now, inaccurate assessment of reconditioning required. Again, you have a few minutes to assess how much you're willing to put into a vehicle and whether you can make the profit off of that vehicle before you decide to purchase that vehicle. So this ends up being a big one where people really misestimate how much capital they need to put into a vehicle in detailing and slight mechanic work before they can put it on their lot and have customers come and view it and hopefully turn it over. Misunderstanding vehicle build and options. Now this is one that I personally have seen a lot, where a dealer gets so excited when they see a vehicle. It's something that they thought it must have had 4x4. It's a truck. It's maybe in a mountainous region. Of course it has 4x4, right? Well, they did not look at the options, or they are misunderstanding that option came in a rear-wheel drive, and they pulled the trigger and paid a 4x4 price for a rear-wheel drive vehicle. And now they have this vehicle that they can't sell in the market because it doesn't have a 4x4. Or another example is maybe it was a fleet vehicle and it doesn't have power windows or power locks. And they thought for sure it had power windows or power locks, and they didn't bother to check because they had that confidence just from the initial look. But then they ended up making a mistake, and then they paid a price that was a little over than what they thought they were going to pay for that vehicle, or they simply can't sell that vehicle in their market. And then you have simple mistakes as well, where somebody is bidding on a vehicle that's already gone through the lane, or bidding on a vehicle that happens to be right in front of them when the vehicle is left, and they end up purchasing the wrong vehicle, or they way overpay for a vehicle because they thought they were purchasing the vehicle in front or behind it. So that happens often as well, even to the seasoned vets out there at the auction house. They're little bonehead mistakes, but it happens, and you're locked into that vehicle at that time. And then you have purchase price risk, where people just get caught up in bidding. They get really excited, and the next thing they know, they ended up paying too much for a vehicle, or it got jumped, and they ended up throwing their hand up at the wrong time, and they find themselves overpaying and not being able to harvest any capital or any gross profit off that vehicle. Now, ways to mitigate the day of sale phase. So we're trying to mitigate that risk, and these are some of the options available. Again, condition reports are great to have because now you can kind of see it yourself to see if the condition report is pretty accurate. You can pretty much trust it. Now you have a walk around. Now, sale of day check. Another one, you want a current, accurate kind of description of the vehicle, and that would be the most current because it's the condition of the vehicle, the date it's sold. Frame check. Again, you want to make sure you have a straight vehicle. No one wants to buy anything with frame damage. Everybody hears frame in the industry, and they immediately shy away. So arbitration now. Arbitration is one that I like to to harbor on because it can be a great risk tool if it's applied correctly, but you need to know the auction at which you currently buy from, their arbitration policy, because some vehicles are arbitratable, some are not arbitratable, and some are only arbitratable for certain reasons. So a green light vehicle and a red light vehicle, there's definitely different arbitration standards for each of these vehicles. So it's very risky to rely on arbitration as the sole means of risk management for a vehicle. Very risky. Post-sale inspection, or PSI. A lot of auction houses provide a PSI product. Again, it's great to have an inspection. It can detect major mechanical issues, even minor mechanical issues, and it has to pass that PSI before it goes in the ownership of the dealer. Or if it doesn't pass the PSI, they can work out a price or maybe unwind the deal. Self-inspection on the lot by buyer. This is pretty much one that everybody does before they purchase a car. They open it up, they listen to the engine, pop the hood, you sit in the car, see if it feels nice. All the guys at the auction, the dealers, seem to have some form of self-inspection or things that they're looking for before they buy the vehicle. And then possible test drives. When available, people like to go test drive the vehicle out. That's only when available. There's different rules for different auction houses. You may find that in one spot or one auction house that may not let you do that at another auction house. So when available, it's always a good thing to try to do. The pros of these, you get a bit deeper dive in the vehicle condition. So with some of these checks, sale day check, PSI, you get a little more in-depth idea of the vehicle you're buying. And they can detect major mechanical issues. So if it doesn't pass a post-sale inspection, which is the guarantee on the mechanics that they inspect, then they don't have to take ownership of the vehicle. So before it even leaves a lot and goes to the dealer's lot or dealer's mechanic, they don't have to worry about it. It's kind of an avoided issue. It's a great risk management tool when used correctly. And they can address some undisclosed issues. So a problem a lot with, especially with arbitration, is that there was an issue with the vehicle that was undisclosed. And arbitration itself is seems to be a nasty policy because somebody feels like they got swindled, and it really ends up being not a happy thing to do. So we try to avoid that if possible. But then the cons of this is the issues that don't arise until like the vehicle's been warmed up. So basically it may do just fine going from where it's parked in the auction line to the auction block itself, but once you get it down 20, 30 miles down the road, now that the engine starts to heat up, and now next thing you know is that it needs a new radiator. And where did that come from? I didn't see that before. Well, it's kind of hard to tell until that engine gets completely warmed up. And then vehicles that don't qualify for some of these options, such as post-sale inspection, there's a very stringent qualification to receive a PSI. You can't be a red light or an as-is vehicle and receive a PSI and receive the benefits from it, and it can't be a vehicle under a certain amount purchase price as well. So you have to make sure that the vehicle you're purchasing qualifies for a post-sale inspection before you rely on that as a risk management tool. And again, is to go to the auction house and read the requirements of that post-sale inspection product before you rely on that. And then inconsistencies in approach. Now, post-sale inspections are great. Frame checks are great. CRs, condition reports are great, but they're only as good as the people that are doing them. Now, I'm not saying that they're trying to con you in any way or they're trying to overlook issues. They're going to do the best they can, but the fact of the matter is there's different people that have different abilities when it comes to checking these vehicles out. So, the select risks associated with the DAR phase. They're the delivery, assessment, and reconditioning phase. Okay, right off the bat here, we see that it's from point of sale to about 3 weeks after. It may vary from dealer to dealer, and you'll notice that the risk is from low again to high, because this is when you start finding out what the true reconditioning costs are, what the true big mechanical issues are with the vehicle. So the recon expense exceed the original expectations. Well, all those expenses that exceed the original expectations cut right to that gross profit, and before you know it, that gross profit it may have a negative sign in front of it, and no one likes to see taking a loss on a vehicle that they just invested on. Problems with PSI or arbitration. So maybe a vehicle had passed this post-sale inspection that you had put on it, or you thought it was an arbitratable issue and you're trying to return the vehicle. It turns out it's not an arbitrational issue, or it did pass the PSI, but after the 7-day or 14-day guarantee you got on it, that issue arose, and now that particular mechanical issue is no longer you're no longer to bring it back for that mechanical issue because the guarantee is expired. Transportation delays. For people that buy in multiple markets, big buying groups as well, they try to take advantage of these markets. They rely heavily on transportation, and sometimes geographically, sometimes weather, sometimes construction may provide transportation delays before that vehicle can get to the dealer's shop so they can accurately assess it. And if they do put a guarantee on it, the amount of days that are delayed before that vehicle gets to that shop ends up cutting right out of that guarantee time. So it's less time that they have, if any time, by the time they get it to accurately assess what it needs. Undiscovered condition issues, again, major problems with a vehicle. This is another prevalent one. These are your issues at this point. And these are issues that have come up that, okay, maybe the transmission is completely slips on fourth gear. So now you have a vehicle that needs a lot of work, and that gross profit just completely misses. Now you're going to have to find some way to either recondition this vehicle, take a loss on it when you run it back to the auction lanes, or just let it sit until you can find something to do with it, which takes time and money and other working capital away from you. Simple mistakes. Another personal story of mine of a vehicle that has a power steering issue, and if I had a mechanic and I said they had the power steering issue, and he completely rechanged the power steering box, and it ended up being the pump that was the issue, we would have completely mistaken on the entire issue right there and fixed something that was not, that didn't need fixing, and still have a problem. It happens. You think if there's something wrong with the vehicle, it ends up being something else, and you just wasted a lot of capital fixing something that didn't need to be fixed. And then capital crunch. This is an interesting one because this applies from outside pressures usually, or so all the money that you have in these vehicles that are in this deliberate assessment reconditioning phase are pretty much locked down, and they are represented by these vehicles that aren't yet ready to retail. So they're frozen assets effectively because they're not fluid capital. And say a dealer has an opportunity to acquire some more land to expand their dealership, and they may need some of that working capital, and yet it's frozen in these aspects. So they have outside pressure. Maybe there's something in the family that they need capital or need money to address it. And next thing you know, it's frozen capital, so they come up short. They need a way to move this capital. Mitigation options for the DAR, or the delivery assessment and reconditioning phase. So if available, post-sale inspection from your auction house. They usually come in 7-day and 14-day guarantees, and what they do is they do a mechanical inspection, and they guarantee on the mechanics of that vehicle that were inspected for 7 or 14 days, depending on what the user wants or what the policy dictates. There are other guarantees out there. Post-sale is just one of the most prevalent ones at all the auction houses. There are other companies out there that also provide some sort of guarantee. You just got to make sure you read all the fine print before you rely on one of those guarantees as a way to manage risk. Then reconditioning. This is something that most dealers do, is reconditioning their vehicles, which includes vehicle detailing, taking pictures, making sure it's clean, making sure it's nice and shiny. Light mechanic repairs, hopefully paint and body repairs, something that's just going to be very eye-pleasing to the vehicle. And you have major repairs. Now, unfortunately, these do happen. No one likes it when it does happen, but it does happen. And these are issues that are going to prevent that vehicle from being able to be responsibly sold to a consumer at the end of the day. Makes the vehicle somewhat a risky vehicle. I would say somewhat makes the vehicle a risky vehicle. And DealShield Purchase Protect Guarantee, which, as Stu mentioned before, this is one of our products. We'll talk about a little more detail up here, but it's our own guarantee. It's a little more inclusive and provides a little more protection to a variety of vehicles than some of these other guarantees. The pros of these are they can provide an on-site inspection for the PSIs, so you have a mechanic looking at the vehicle before it even leaves the lot to go to the dealer's lot, and they can kick back the vehicle, or they can negotiate for covered issues. So for the PSI, because it's a PSI problem, or the inspected guarantee, and the mechanic does go out, they can bring the vehicle back, and they can either negotiate what the issues are and see if they can get them a certain money amount to fix that, or they can just try to unwind the deal at that point. And then the cons of these are does not address risk beyond specific mechanic and structural issues. So PSIs are just purely for mechanics. Outside of that, for cosmetics, for changing in the buying market, they don't address anything else like that. They just guarantee the mechanics, and only for the 7 or the 14 days, depending on what's provided, what's available. And they may not be resolved within a 2-week timeline. So maybe you have an issue with a vehicle that happens just outside that 14-day mark. At that point, it's on you It's no longer a guaranteeable issue. You can't bring it back. You can't have that peace of mind that you had previous to that, because once that guarantee expires, that the issue might have been right there, just lasted 14 days. Or maybe you have enough vehicles that you don't get around to a vehicle in 14 days. This is where a lot of the bulk buyers we talk to, is that they need some extra time beyond 14 days to inspect vehicles, just because the amount, the sheer volume that they're doing, they don't have enough time. Then recon and repairs that may exceed estimates. So reconditioning expenses that exceed what you initially thought. It's unfortunate. It happens. It's one of the things that happens most times. So you're in the reconditioning of the vehicle. You're looking at the light mechanical work. Well, that light mechanical work needs to be done in this area. Well, it needs to be done in this area as well. Next thing you know, that reconditioning expense is completely blown out, and you have this expense that just completely eliminates or severely depletes your gross capital on that vehicle, or the gross profit on that vehicle available. So our solution for the delivery assessment and recondition phase is the DealShield Purchase Protect. Now, the Purchase Protect is a guarantee. It's a purchase guarantee you can place on most vehicles, and the key features are it offers up to 21 days of protection. So just in comparison to a PSI, which offers 7 and 14 days, we offer an extra week of protection. And if you notice the bullet point right underneath that, you can return the vehicle for any reason, not just mechanical. Now, it does cover mechanicals, just like the PSI, the post-sale inspection would, but it covers other things as well. So if the vehicle sits on your lot and you don't have any interest by day 18 and you don't think you'll be able to turn over the vehicle, you can bring it back. Or if you don't like the color, or you thought you purchased the wrong vehicle, all these things that happen in everyday life and everyday dealerships, now they can put a guarantee on that to protect that capital they invested. And when they do decide to return a vehicle, they get 100% of their vehicle purchase price and buy fee refunded, which is very nice, especially because we provide the buy fee back. And so you get all that money back, so you can, as a dealer, can purchase a vehicle that you can make money off of, or that you had originally intended to purchase. And the benefits of this are gross profit protection. So there's protecting from the underestimated recon expenses. That's the big one right there. We've talked about it before. It's a common one where you end up thinking you're going to spend X amount on reconditioning the vehicle, and you end up spending Y amount. It completely blows out that gross profit. Well, now, if it over exceeds that threshold that you had set as a dealer, you can bring the vehicle back, save that gross profit, and put that capital towards a vehicle that will be more profitable for you. Now, freedom from worry against undiscovered issues. This is another one that's been prevalent. There's going to be undiscovered issues with vehicles from time to time. And as a dealer, buying these vehicles, not knowing all the information, not knowing their current state and where they've been and whatnot, or their service records, there's always worry about what has this vehicle gone through. Has this vehicle had any accidents? Has this vehicle been serviced regularly? What am I actually buying? So these are always worries, and that may stress or provide an undiscovered condition issue in the future. And with the core benefit, as a core benefit, you can bring that vehicle back, so that worry is still eliminated. So you know that you have a channel kind of carved out for you to facilitate these vehicles that you can't sell on your lot. And then it goes right into point 3, no time or effort spent on vehicle disposal. And just like we've said before, you created that channel, so now if you have these issues, you know exactly what you're going to do. You don't have to decide whether you need to rerun through the lanes, whether you need to make it recondition the vehicle and try to just salvage what you can off of it. You run right through the lanes again, you get 100% of your purchase, or you take it right back to us, get 100% of your purchase price and your buy fee refunded. So what does the Purchase Protect cover? Well, it's widely available. Nearly 90% of every vehicle that runs through the lane is eligible for purchase protection, and that's a large volume, especially compared to some of the other stringent guarantees that some of the other companies provide out there. So it covers year 1996 and newer with less than 250,000 miles, and this includes as in a red light. Obviously, green light are also eligible as well, but non-PSI eligible vehicles as well. So there is no threshold or minimum amount that you have to spend on a vehicle for it to be eligible for a DealShield purchase protection. Okay. Now, the purchase price can go up to $50,000 for vehicles that are bought on a vehicle-by-vehicle coverage. There's a couple ways to buy a DealShield purchase protection. There's vehicle-by-vehicle, which the purchase price is capped out at $50,000, and then there is a DealShield 360 program where you put you put protection on all of your vehicles automatically applied, and the purchase price extends from that $50,000 to $100,000. And it's a great way to actually manage your entire inventory versus managing risk on a transactional basis. So it ends up being you have that risk on every risk kind of mitigated on all of your vehicles except all of your vehicles aside from just these specific ones. And unfortunately, though, this guarantee excludes salvage, so no total resource auction vehicles if the miles are unknown, so no TMU vehicles as well, branded titles such as flood and hail, theft, those titles as well. They are unqualifiable vehicles, and specialty titles. So it says hand-built vehicles like Lamborghini and Ferrari. Unfortunately, we don't have the means to guarantee those vehicles, so we can't. And you can customize the protection terms. So we offer up to 21 days, but some people don't need the 21 days, and we figured that we can provide for them and reduce the amount of coverage days and provide it at a lower rate. So we do offer 7 and 14 days of protection as well. Different dealers need different amounts of time depending on where they are located geographically to the auction they're buying. The odometer allowance, you can get up to 250 or 500 miles added to the odometer while it's in your possession before you bring it back to DealShield. So another instance where it's up to the individual dealer where they're located, or whether they're going to use transport, whether they're going to drive the vehicle or not. So it covers in-lane, simulcast, and OBE purchases. This tool was as DealShield purchase protection was intended for online, providing a confidence, and it's had great in providing confidence on buying vehicles online, because you know that you can return the vehicle that you don't have the chance to touch. So it's been great in doing that. It's been great in the lanes as well with undiscovered condition issues. So we're seeing a lot of good push, especially in all the 62 locations that we're located at Manheim, so at every U.S. Manheim location outside of the mobile auctions as of now. And then for the East Coast guys, we're also located in Bel Air Auto Auction down on the East Coast, and we're going to be in Tallahassee auction in January 15th. And then we have the select risks for front line in the retail phase. So the time you're putting that vehicle on your lot, what is the risk to this? Well, we gauge this at a low to medium risk, because at this point you've already gone through the mechanics of the vehicle, you've already done the reconditioning of the vehicle. Hopefully it's a front line, ready to go, ready to be sold vehicle, but there's still risks involved. Some of these risks include lack of buyer interest. You had a vehicle that you purchased and you purely thought that it was going to turn, and it ends up not turning. Now you are stuck with this vehicle on your lot, taking up space, taking up time that another vehicle could be sitting on your lot that could sell faster, so that costs money. Targeted buyer back out. So if you had a vehicle for a specific customer and he got cold feet or wasn't exactly what he was looking for, and he backs out of the deal. So now you're stuck with a vehicle you may or not be able to sell depending on what your market is or how you like to sell vehicles. And now you have to find a way to recoup some of the capital that you invested in that vehicle. Unhappy buyer. So say you did buy for a buyer or you sold to a buyer, and through some of these reconditioning expenses that may have been cut corners, or the person that you purchased the vehicle for didn't like the car, it wasn't exactly what they were looking for, that creates negative PR. That creates a negative relationship. You want repeat customers. That affects that. You want somebody who's going to go brag about how well you did and expand your customer base. Now, additional condition issues. So say you thought the vehicle was completely ready to go. It's sitting in your lot for so long. Well, if the vehicle doesn't run for X amount of time and it sits on the lot for a lot of time, then maybe the brakes froze up. Maybe depending on where you are, what season it is. If it was a rainy, maybe you're in Seattle, maybe you're in the northeast. You get rust issues now, just because the vehicle's sat and it hasn't been run and nobody's had any interest in it. Changes in market conditions. So as neighborhoods come up, as neighborhoods go down, as fuel-efficient vehicles come in, as gas goes down and guzzlers go back into favor, all these contribute in changes in market conditions. So vehicle types are going to come in and out of favoritism. So this gives you a little bit more security. You need to find some more security for an ability to change these conditions. So these contribute to vehicles sitting on lots longer than they need to sit, freezing up capital. And then fierce competition. There's always going to be other competition in your area, and they may be focusing on your buying market. Now you have to compete, and how are you going to respond to the competition in your area to sell your vehicles quicker than your competitor. So the mitigation process for this, for the retail phase. Options available, well, DealShield Market Protect. This is another one that we just recently started to roll out. It's in a very limited quantity right now, and it's very in the research and development phase as well. We'll talk a little bit more about this in the preceding slide. Other guarantees, again, there are other companies out there that provide guarantees. A lot of factory sales say that if you can't sell your vehicle in a certain amount of time, that you can bring the vehicle back and get your purchase price or a certain percent of the purchase price. Price reductions, you see it all the time to compete with competition in a specific region. You have dealers that have reduced their price, that just reduces the amount that they can take on the vehicle, eating up their bottom line before they can finally push that vehicle on. And dispose back at the wholesale auction. Now you see this happen a lot as well. People can't move a vehicle, they just bring it back to the auction, run through the lanes, try to free up that capital again to purchase the vehicle if they can. But often than not, more often than not, they take a big loss on that vehicle because the amount of time it was in their possession, the value is going to go down and down and down. Unfortunately, a lot of vehicles, as far as what they're worth, continue to go down until they become classic vehicles. Then the pros of these are that it covers market risk for a full 60 days after the day of sale, and this is the Market Protect. We'll talk more about that in this next slide, but pretty much it covers the market risk for the 60 days, and you can return the vehicle from day 61 to 67 and receive your purchase price and your buy fee back. Cons with some of these other ones are some of these guarantees are limited to the percentage that they refund. So whatever you spent, maybe you're only going to get a certain percent of it back. And they're not widely available. You really have to find where these sales are to utilize these guarantees, like these factory sales, or they're more one-offs than they are mainstays in the industry. So our solution, again, is Market Protect. To explain a little bit more on that, what Market Protect is, if you put Market Protect on a vehicle, this is from the sell side usually, is 60 days of market coverage. And you can return the vehicle if it does not sell within that 60 days from day 61 to 67. So if you don't have a vehicle that moves on the lot, it doesn't have to continue to take up space on that lot. You can return that vehicle for any reason, whether it is mechanical, whether the brakes did freeze up, or you just can't sell it, which is more often not the case. And you'll get 100% of your purchase price and your buy fee refunded. So you free up that capital again to maybe buy a more popular vehicle. And this is really focused on reducing turnover times, which means you can sell more vehicles in a more constringent amount of time, which is one of the most important things, I guess, in the industry, is the amount of vehicles you can sell in a certain amount of time while maintaining that bottom line. And the core benefits of this are gross profit protection. Again, unsold inventory. These things are not going to eat up your time, eat up your capital by sitting in a lot and not selling, taking up space. Freedom from worry against market fluctuations. So again, freedom from worry. What if I sold 4x4 trucks and gas goes way back up, and next thing I know everybody's buying Nissan Leafs and I can't move these things, right? Well, I have Market Protect on these, and I can bring them back from day 61 to 67, free up that capital, and next thing you know, maybe I have some more Leafs or hybrids on my lot. And then no time or effort spent on vehicle disposal. So you have a vehicle that just doesn't sell, you don't have to find out how to move it. You already have a channel. The channel's already carved out. You have a process set in place. You don't have to run that vehicle through the lanes again and take a loss, which more often than not happens because the value's gone down to what's in your possession. So Market Protect coverage. It's got a limited availability. Like I said, it's really more in the R&D phase. We're really trying it out. It's looking to be a 2015 product for certain, but at this point it's on a more one-off basis. It's currently offered in only select markets and by select sellers. And it's currently not available for the purchase by buyers, so it has to be something applied on to the vehicle by seller. Now, the generous protection terms, we've talked about it, up to 60 days, where you can turn the vehicle from day 61 to 67. So again, you have that channel cut out. You know what you're going to do with this vehicle if it does not sell in that amount of time, and you freed up that capital. And the odometer allowance is up to 250 miles. So it's a little more constringent on the allowance. We want to make sure that we do give the dealer time and allowance miles to try out the vehicle, make sure that everything's going to work as far as test drives and whatnot go. But it's more constringent in the fact that the vehicle is going to be out of our kind of eye for 60 days. And it covers specific vehicles per seller offer. So whatever the seller puts on the vehicle. So whatever the make and model and the year combination that seller would like to put the purchase protection on, it's up to them. It's not something that the buyer has control of. And the bigger picture. So cost benefit of analysis. Now, this is important, how you kind of gauge what cost is on spending on risk. Now, the overall risk mitigation, it usually ends up in a large dollar figure each quarter or each year that's looked on, and it's kind of a shame that that's the way it ends, because you can't gauge the amount of money that you're spending, because how do you figure how much money you save from a problem that never occurred? An effective risk mitigation, that's what it does. It avoids those problems. But our study has shown that over time, that products such as DealShield Purchase Protect, and it looks a lot like Market Protect as well, they're actually going to save dealers money. And by avoiding these problems, by creating these channels, by not taking a loss on vehicles and making sure that they can sell these vehicles for a profit, and if they can't, recouping that capital back. The inventory risk management. So our best dealers know how to use the product, not just to mitigate risk, but on a vehicle-by-vehicle basis, but they're using it on their entire inventory. So they're not just focusing on a vehicle-by-vehicle basis. They're using it on the entire inventory, and by using it on their entire inventory, they're spreading that risk out. So if you spread that risk mitigation out, now next thing you know, you are really reducing the reconditioning expenses on your vehicles. You're reducing the turnover times. You're selling better vehicles in a less amount of time than you would without risk mitigation tools, and that is a very important part to expand the business, and what we like to focus on, and the best people, the best dealers that use this product are doing just that. So what's next? It's kind of one near and dear to me, the Certified Buyers Program. Now we'll be launching coursework for that in 2015. It's going to show how dealers can best use some of these tools that we talked about today to mitigate different risks involved with vehicle sourcing throughout the phases. Now this program will also show how the bigger picture benefits can be accomplished, such as reducing reconditioning expenses and reducing turnover time, so they can sell those better vehicles more efficiently. And we anticipate this will be launched mid to late in Q1 2015. You're going to be at an ADA, and it's definitely going to be one of the topics that we're going to be promoting there as well. So additional offerings to come. You know, our foundation is set on the philosophy that it's a predictive model. So we use an algorithm to try to predict the risk on individual transactions. We use an SAS or SaaS cloud analytics platform, and it's a robust platform that will allow us to continue to provide risk mitigation products and services in years to come. We plan on doing things like the Market Protect Certified Buyers Program, and expand on that, and maybe couple Market Protect with the Purchase Protect to create a total protect package that really can try to mitigate risk from the point of purchase to the point of end sale. And that's what our goal is. So if you want any more information, visit DealShield.com. I'm going to kind of give you a comprehensive view of some of the material that we talked about today. You can also contact DealShield customer service. Their customer service number, they're really easy to get a hold of. Great people. They can field a lot of questions. The number is 855-246-5556. Again, field a lot of questions. Even if you do decide that you want to purchase a DealShield purchase guarantee, maybe you're a dealer, you're in the lane, or you just have general questions about DealShield and what it covers, how it's priced, that's a great number to reference. Now, if you also feel more comfortable emailing support@DealShield.com, they're open Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Or just download the app, available at the iPhone store or the Android store. Log in with your Manheim user ID, and you can kind of use it as a tool to gauge risk on individual vehicles. All right, and that's pretty much the majority, the bulk of the meat that we have to talk about today. At this time, we'd like to field any questions, comments, and concerns.
Excellent presentation, both Matt and Stu. Thank you so very much. And just a reminder that we are recording today's session, so I can go through again the great material that Matt had shared and shared with other people at your dealership and your fellow colleagues to strategize of what might be best steps, course of action might be best next. And if you have any questions for Stu and Matt, please use the questions box on the GoToWebinar control panel. And gentlemen, a few questions have come in, kind of a similar genre related to the Purchase Protect product. And And just to clarify, Matt, right now the coverage only applies to purchases of vehicles at one of the 62 locations where DealShield is currently integrated in. Is that correct?
We also include any vehicle purchased through Dealer Match, the dealer-to-dealer network.
Okay, excellent. That's along the lines of a similar question that another dealer submitted. Is that if they able to get the DealShield protection if buying through a dealer-to-dealer network, as you just referenced. Again, what is the availability of that, and again, what protections are available if it's a dealer-to-dealer acquisition?
So right now, if it's dealer-to-dealer through Dealer Match, no problem. We cover that as well. Other than that, you know, and OVE, of course, and the physical auctions we mentioned, that's currently where the product is available. We'll be assessing as we go forward what other options it may be available at.
Okay, okay. And you mentioned during your presentation that Bel Air Auto Auction already is in the platform with Tallahassee Auto Auction to be joining the fray first quarter of next year. What are the plans to another dealer is wondering what are the plans to roll out at other non-Manheim auctions? From what you can share, what are the hopes to expand that network availability?
I can tell you that we're definitely looking at it, but I can't give you specific information at this time. We're just not far enough along in that process, but we are actively looking at it.
Yeah, Bel Air and Tallahassee have both been recently new acquisitions. We're kind of gauging how they're going to do with the product and the markets that they're in, and we're going to try to feed off and gauge off how they do. It's going to base what our future steps are going to be as far as outside of the Manheim market.
Great, great. Well, you mentioned the upcoming NADA convention. A dealer's wondering if you all will be at that event, and if so, what type of demo or dialogue can they engage in at that show in San Francisco?
So we'll actually be, Manheim has been gracious enough to provide us some space within their booth, so you can look for both Matt and I will be there in person. We're going to be wearing, you know, our DealShield Gold shirts, so we won't be hard to find. There will be other colleagues of ours there as well, and we will have two private events, one on Friday night, one on Saturday night. We're going to run through some of this information and also get into more detail, so if anyone is interested in that, through this process, just let us know and we'll make sure you get an invite to those events. But there will be plenty of our team on site from the morning to the evening at the convention to get into the details. We'll also be demonstrating the mobile app and how the pricing works in general.
Very good, very good. Sounds like a wonderful opportunity to gather at NADA to get more information. And if you have any questions now, please use the questions box in the GoToWebinar control panel, and look for a message in your email inbox here in the coming days with a link to the recorded version of this webinar that you can review the great information that Stu and Matt have shared. And just to reiterate, Matt and Stu, where can dealers find a list of locations where DealShield is available?
It is available. If you're still viewing our screen, I've got the list of locations right there on the screen. It's also available on our website, and any of our customer service personnel would be happy to email you this. So if you just send an email to support@dealshield.com, they'd be happy to send this list of locations to you.
Excellent. It looks like a lot of territory is being covered there, and hopefully one of those facilities is near your dealership. Stu and Matt, another interesting question come in from a dealer. Talked about the availability of making returns. Just dealers wondering what seems to be the most common reason that a dealer has made a return using the DealShield platform.
Common reasons, most common reasons are probably misestimation of reconditioning costs, where just eat so much from the gross capital or gross profit that they just cannot receive the return that they thought they were going to on that vehicle. It's not profitable for them. Another big issue is unforeseen condition issues, where there is just one issue that's going to completely ruin this entire transaction, and now you can't sell this vehicle on your lot, and you're going to take a huge hit when you disclose it again at the auction. So these are great ways, or the purchase protection is a great way to harvest or maintain the capital that you invested in that vehicle to bring it back so you can purchase a new vehicle that you can sell that may not have these issues.
I'll tell you though, we've actually had dealers return vehicles for dozens and dozens of reasons. You know, when we say we take them back for any reason, we really do that. The only reasons we wouldn't take it back are if it's acts of God that are covered by insurance, such as accidents and flood and mudslides and those kinds of things that are covered by insurance. Other than that, we take it back. We've even had dealers who have bought a vehicle at auction on a cloudy day thinking they were buying a black vehicle. It turned out to be a dark blue vehicle when they got it back in the sunshine. And, you know, you name it, we take it back.
Well, that's great peace of mind to know. And before we started up the webinar, when we were having a brief discussion, gentlemen, we talked about the importance of the vehicle purchase protection associated with as-is units as well as red light units. Just if you could just reiterate how important that component is to the DealShield platform.
Yeah, so the DealShield is great as far as providing a guarantee as far as the purchase protect goes on vehicles that are red light and as-is vehicles, because the guarantees available for these red light and as-is vehicles are so limited, and oftentimes they're just non-existent. So you're really purchasing at your own risk as a dealer by trying to get a deal out there on a red light or as-is vehicle, which is unfortunate because there are a lot of vehicles that are really quality vehicles that are sold as-is and as red light vehicles, but without the confidence of putting a guarantee on that vehicle, a lot of those vehicles go by the wayside or are way underspent as far as the value that they may have or may not have. But again, you have that worry that there might be an issue, and this is a great product to provide that peace of mind.
And depending on auction, if you think about it, the volume of vehicles going through the lanes that are as-is or red light is pretty substantial. So being able to extend this product to that volume of vehicles, we think is a real advantage for our customers.
Very good, very good. Closing moments here with Stu Dressler and Matt Barnard from DealShield. And gentlemen, if you could bring up that slide where you had your contact information to reach out to DealShield. In our closing moments here, along with that contact information, what each of you would like to take a turn to just make a closing point or two about how DealShield can help stores either close the year strong here in the last couple of weeks or get 2015 out to a great start.
So, you know, I'll just say this has been I've been in the auto industry for over 20 years now, and this has been absolutely one of the most rewarding products to work on because so many dealers who do business with us come up to us and thank us for what we offer because it really has saved them any number of times from some real problems.
Yes, and the amount of dealers that I've had conversations with that just generally do not believe that we can provide this kind of product out there. And then as soon as they bring a vehicle back and it works exactly the way that we kind of tell them that it will work, the light in their eyes, we know we've made a customer for life, and it's a rewarding feeling in that. And it's even more rewarding when you find somebody who's actually using it to reduce their turnover times and their reconditioning expenses and grow their business with it.
Very well put, both gentlemen. That's Stu Dressler and Matt Barnard from DealShield, reviewing the great programs and products available through this division of the Cox Automotive Group. So, gentlemen, thank you so very much. Excellent presentation and definitely information that can help dealers improve their businesses.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you again in the next installment of the Auto Remarketing Training Series.